So it's like 2 a.m. and I'm kind of just working on something in this game. And I was like, yeah, I could probably go talk about something for a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing going forward with the volume, I'm going to keep this on. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn everything else off except note blocks. And that should probably fix it. So, last video I didn't really look at much for the analytics. I did notice, however, one of my old viewers roasted. He actually commented SCP was so peak, and I agree. It was great. It was a really cool part of my life where I spent pretty much a lot of my free time, especially in school, when I was like trying to do something that was unrelated from schoolwork, but I still want to look like I was working, because obviously you don't want the teachers to be like, oh wow, this kid isn't working, he's not doing something good. I'd write. I generally do short horror stories, or not really scary, but tense, suspenseful type of stuff. That's kind of how I got into writing in the first place, and then eventually I found out about the SCP wiki and the fact that existed. And then eventually from there I learned about games. I always liked video games, but who would put two and two together while you're still in, I don't know, elementary, middle school, that people actually took a collaborative writing platform and turned it into games. It's crazy. But yeah, so I learned about, pretty sure I found out about Containment Breach first from YouTube, and then later I happened to be on Steam at some point, and some of my friends pointed out that Secret Lab existed. I think this might have been like, man, I don't remember the year, but it was forever ago at this point. And I loved it. I fell in love with Secret Lab. I fell in love with that kind of community. It was a lot of fun for me for a really long time. And slowly, from the time where I really started streaming it a lot, like mostly Secret Lab, to when I kind of stopped streaming altogether, I was slowly kind of fell out of love with SCP in general, and largely with streaming, and especially streaming on Twitch. Had really nothing to do with my community or my chat or people I associate with. It just became harder and harder for me to do it, especially with the fact that I had to kind of take my education more seriously, go to school, get good grades, that type of stuff. So why did I really fall out of love with SCP? I honestly think the biggest thing was the community surrounding it. Now, if you weren't part of the writing wiki, or people who followed it closely, or people who followed YouTubers who covered it, it was just becoming progressively more and more difficult, at least for me, to maintain interest in it, and even maintain interest in the game, because it largely seemed like Northwood, who are the makers of Secret Lab, were just uninterested in the game that much. I mean, they put a lot of time and effort into the updates and stuff. I just wasn't the biggest fan of all the changes made. I feel like it kind of lost how indie it was and how out there it was as that type of multiplayer game. At some point, I might, in the future, go back and try it out and see what's changed, see what hasn't. But aside from the game, I kind of just slowly fell out of love with the fandom in general, and kind of how people treated the stuff, some of the newer articles, how the whole greenlighting process has become so, you need to make original content, it can't just be something simple. What was really fun to me was the fact that SCPs could be anything. It could literally just be a rock that if you touched it had a 1 in 10 chance to turn you into a frog, or maybe if you turned into a frog you now suddenly had psychic powers, and if you touch the rock again you could turn back into a human and keep your psychic powers. Like, I don't know, you had a bunch of fun stuff, and now so many of the articles are just overly complicated. The writing is good, I guess that is one thing that I will say has improved vastly, is the writing, but the soul is gone, largely in my opinion, where so many of these new things, they are great, they're incredibly well written, but they lack soul. They almost feel, I don't want to say corporatized, but they almost feel corporate. It feels like a lack of interest in the actual final product and how it would feel. Now, I'm saying this, and I don't know if this is a common opinion. It could have just been like, oh yeah, you grew up, you weren't as interested in it anymore, but I was still interested in writing, and I still very much am. I still read a lot. I just happen to read actual books now, and less so in the online writing sphere, just because it's not something I'm as interested in. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I still think SCP is great. I think it's an amazing thing for writers to go see what other people are doing, to get feedback on your work. I wrote a couple articles. I don't think any of them ever really got greenlit. I had some that were in the process of doing that, going through the greenlighting process, but I don't exactly remember what happened. Something happened. It never ended up working. I have a bunch of old drafts, which were fun for me to write. Probably should go find them. They're on my laptop from like freaking 2013. MacBook 2013. Great laptop, by the way. But yeah, that's my story with SCP. It was a big part of my life for a really long time. Kind of got me started with streaming too, which is kind of crazy to think about, that going from liking collaborative horror writing to video games got me started in streaming and talking to people and making content, and kind of got me out of my own slump while I was in COVID, and it was really difficult for me to talk to anybody or anything, so it's crazy. Anyways, that's my story about SCP. Roasted, thanks for bringing it up in the comments. I'm surprised you even watched the video, so it's good to see you there. I'm glad you're still doing good. But yeah, so thanks for listening, and I hope everyone who listens having a good one. It is 2 a.m., so if I sound a little tired or out of it, that is probably the reason. Expect more from me in the future. Thanks. Have a good night.